Today, we're looking at the wars happening around the world in 2025. Let's dive in. Russia versus Ukraine. This war began in February 2022, but its roots run much deeper. The conflict really started when Russia annexed Crimea back in 2014. Putin launched a full-scale invasion claiming Ukraine cannot join NATO. Initially, Russia predicted they'd capture Kyiv in 3 days, but that completely backfired. President Zelensky's famous words, "I need ammunition, not a ride," became iconic, and with Western support, Ukraine held its ground. However, the situation has evolved since 2025 began. With Trump's re-election potentially affecting U.S. support levels, Russia has been gradually advancing in eastern regions. There are also reports of North Korean troops being deployed. What's next? Prolonged conflict seems likely. While diplomatic solutions are being explored, both sides remain unwilling to back down easily. Next, Israel versus Palestine and Lebanon. The Middle East erupted again on October 7, 2023, with Hamas's surprise attack. Israel devastated Gaza, and when Lebanon's Hezbollah joined in, the front expanded. This conflict's history is incredibly complex. It's a territorial dispute that's been ongoing since 1948, over 75 years now. Religion, territory, resources, and political interests are all intertwined, making resolution extremely difficult. Currently, Gaza has been largely destroyed with tens of thousands of casualties. The international community calls for ceasefire, but both sides maintain hardline positions. Notably, a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah took effect on November 27, 2024, requiring Hezbollah to withdraw north of the Litani River. Future outlook? Short-term resolution seems unlikely. Israel's security concerns and Palestinian survival rights remain fundamentally at odds. Next, Sudan Civil War, SAF versus RSF. Sudan's Civil War, which began in April 2023, is surprisingly underreported but absolutely devastating. It started as a power struggle between the regular army, SAF, and paramilitary forces, RSF, but has become a full-blown civil war. The capital Khartoum became a battlefield, creating millions of refugees, and international organizations can barely provide assistance. One of Africa's largest countries is on the verge of complete collapse. How did this happen? After Omar al-Bashir's dictatorship fell in 2019, the transitional government was unstable and power struggles within the military exploded. Looking ahead, resolution seems impossible without international intervention. However, as attention focuses on other wars, Sudan risks becoming a forgotten war. Next, Myanmar military vs. democratic forces. Myanmar's chaos began with the military coup in February 2021. Aung San Suu Kyi was imprisoned and the military seized power, sparking nationwide resistance. What started as peaceful protests escalated to armed struggle as military crackdowns intensified. Currently, ethnic armed groups and democratic forces are united against the military. What's unique? Young people are fighting guerrilla warfare in jungles. They're making weapons with 3D printers and communicating via social media, a 21st-century resistance movement. Current situation: the military still controls major cities, but resistance forces dominate rural areas. A BBC study found the junta controls only 21% of Myanmar as of mid-November 2024. The final outcome remains undecided. Next, Ethiopian federal government versus Tigray and Oromo. Another tragedy in the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia has seen ethnic conflicts explode since 2018, particularly serious resistance from the Tigray region and Oromo people. Ethiopia is a multi-ethnic nation with over 80 ethnic groups, and conflicts between the central government and various ethnicities have led to armed clashes. Ironically, Prime Minister Abiy Ali won the Nobel Peace Prize while his own country wages war. Why is it so complex? Each ethnic group has different languages, cultures, and religions, with fierce competition over resources and political power. Resolution prospects? The Ethiopian government is attempting dialogue, but resolving fundamental ethnic conflicts will require significant time. Next, West Africa's War on Terror. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. This region has been fighting Islamic extremist terrorist groups since 2002. Originally, French-led international forces were present, but their recent withdrawal has worsened the situation. Why is this region problematic? It's a poor area south of the Sahara Desert with weak government control, creating ideal conditions for armed groups. Climate change-induced droughts and famines are further exacerbating conflicts. Russia's Wagner Group, now Africa Corps, has intervened, adding geopolitical competition to the mix. France versus Russia influence battles are also unfolding. The future? Short-term resolution seems unlikely. Terrorism, poverty, and climate change are all interconnected, requiring comprehensive approaches. Next, Eastern Congo War over resources. Eastern Congo's conflict has raged since 2004. This region is rich in rare earth minerals, cobalt, and tantalum, precious materials in our smartphones. That's why it's called the blood minerals conflict. Who's fighting? Multiple armed groups like M23 and FDLR are battling for mineral control, with Rwanda and Uganda backing different factions. Over 120 militias operate in the region. Over 6 million deaths since 1996, making it potentially the deadliest conflict since World War II. Currently 5.6 million people are displaced, and sexual violence is used as a weapon of war. Why it continues? Armed groups tax miners and smuggle minerals through neighboring countries into global supply chains. Your smartphone likely contains tantalum from these contested mines. Recent developments. M23 captured Goma in early 2025 but declared a ceasefire on February 4th. UN peacekeepers are present but overwhelmed. The irony? Congo is potentially one of the world's richest countries by resources, yet its people remain among the poorest, a tragic resource curse. Next, Yemen. Saudi versus Iran proxy war. Yemen Civil War, ongoing since 2014, is essentially a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. When Houthi rebels, Iran-backed, captured the capital, a Saudi-led coalition intervened. Yemen has become the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Over 20 million people need humanitarian aid, and children are dying from malnutrition. Why does it continue so long? Yemen became a battleground as Saudi Arabia and Iran compete for Middle Eastern hegemony. The complex geopolitical interests make it difficult to end. Recent changes? Chinese mediation helped Saudi Arabia and Iran restore diplomatic relations, creating a ceasefire atmosphere in Yemen too. However, complete peace still seems distant. The U.S. also launched Operation Rough Rider against Houthi targets in March 2025. Next, Afghanistan-Pakistan armed conflict. The Taliban took power in 2021, but Afghanistan's chaos didn't end. ISIS-K and TTP, Pakistani Taliban, are still active. Pakistan also faces TTP terrorism, so Pakistani forces are conducting operations in border areas. Conflicts between the Afghan Taliban and Pakistani government also continue. Why doesn't it end? This region has been at war for over 45 years since the 1978 Soviet invasion. Weapons are abundant, and various armed groups have complex, intertwined interests. Current situation? While major wars decreased as the Taliban regime stabilized, small-scale terrorism and armed clashes continue.